Can I say something that might hit a little too close to home? If you crash at 2 o'clock, find yourself craving something sweet at night, wake up at 3 in the morning, or feel like your weight just isn't responding the way it used to, that's not just getting older. That's your blood sugar trying to get your attention. And here's the part most people don't realize. You do not have to be diabetic for this to matter.
Why do we keep going back to quick fixes, even when we know they don't work? Welcome to the Coach's Hotline. Glucose, grit, and grace. Real talk with coaches, no sugarcoating.
We're here to help you ditch the diet cycle, stabilize blood sugar, and finally feel at home in your body.
Because health isn't about restriction. It's about freedom, energy, and confidence.
Let's dive in.
And I think that's where I want to start today. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that blood sugar is only something you worry about if you get the diagnosis of diabetes. But the truth is, blood sugar impacts how we feel every single day. Our energy, our mood, our cravings, even our sleep. But also how our body responds to food in midlife or anytime. So today we're having a real conversation about why balancing your blood sugar is proactive health, not reactive damage control. And what actually happens when you do start to stabilize it, because the benefits go way beyond preventing a diagnosis. So coaches, when you hear someone say, I don't have diabetes, so I don't need to worry about my blood sugar. How many of you have heard that?
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What comes up to you guys when you hear that?
You know, just the knowledge that there is so much that we just don't know about our bodies and what we have been led to believe. Because the only time in the media, in the news, that people talk about blood sugar is as it relates to diabetes. So the general population doesn't know about blood sugar because it only comes up in one category. And I think that's a huge disservice to people understanding how their bodies truly work.
Yeah. And I also think that we're trained that we don't go to the doctor until we have a problem. And if we don't understand our symptoms, then we're not going, if we don't understand that waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning is not normal because we've always done it. So we think it's normal, but
and everybody you talk to wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
So it must be normal.
So we don't go to our doctor and say, I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning every day. We wait until something is bad before we go to the doctor. So we don't think preventative, we think curative. And I could go on and on. But the other section of this is that when we go to the doctor for something, it's very categorized, right?
Mm-hmm.
We treat high cholesterol, and then we treat high blood pressure, and then we treat non-alcohol fatty liver disease or any of these pre-symptoms as individual things instead of looking at root cause.
Well, I'm sorry, Elaine, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think that something that we're doing as a society is really normalizing instability. We normalize the 2 p.m., 3 p.m. crash and the cravings, being hangry, living off of caffeine. I mean, again, we wear that kind of as a badge of honor.
Yep.
And we think that a lot of the aches and pains are just a part of adulthood. And I think, to your point, Elaine, when we do go, even for our preventative, yearly, physical, how many of us think to say, hey, you know what? I wake up at 2 a.m. or I am craving, or in the afternoons, or I have to have a pot of coffee every day. I mean, we don't say that because we've normalized that that's just life.
Exactly.
And so while the doctor may go, that's actually not a good thing, we're not even telling them because we think it's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So what are some things that people experience that are actually blood sugar swings? I mean, I know we've all kind of been through a lot of those, and I never connected those dots until later. So what are some of the things, I know we've talked about a few of them now, but what are a few of the things that you guys have seen or that you've heard your clients talk about that has been related to blood sugar?
Brain fog, I did not realize was related to blood sugar.
Yeah.
At all. And so that was a big eye opener for me.
Yeah, my sister was at a point where she couldn't finish sentences. She just couldn't find the word. And her kids, my nieces and nephews, were very frustrated at, mom's getting old, she's getting Alzheimer's, but she's been doing the 100 Days of 1% with me. And we started the beginning of January. And she actually told me about 2 weeks ago, she's like, I'm completing sentences.
Wow.
And I don't, that brain fog, that not being able to find my words is gone. It's better.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a cool, that not being able to find our words is not aging. It may not be Alzheimer's.
Right. I know the one thing that I never associated with blood sugar, which has to do with the spiking and in this case dipping, is that at night, I know that I would be rushing during the day and half the time I hadn't had lunch and I'd pick up a quick snack like a bag of chips or something like that and have that while I was running around with lots of coffee. And then I'd get home and I'd eat a meal. It would be something quick, typically that was high in carbs. And by 8 o'clock at night, I was sound asleep on the couch. I mean, hard asleep. And what I didn't realize is that was my blood sugar crashing.
Yeah.
Is that, and my body was just like, you can't handle this anymore. And I mean, I was hard asleep. And then I would still go to bed, wake up in time to go brush my teeth and go to bed and still sleep through the whole night.
Wow.
Well, I think you bring up a really interesting point that it just dawned on me. My husband had some sugar, probably a little bit more sugar than his blood sugar would have loved him to have. And he mentioned about how, there's the joke that when kids get sugar, they're bouncing off the walls. Honestly, it happens to us, but we call it energy.
Mm-hmm.
We are able to get things done when our blood sugar is completely elevated. And then there is that crash, where we do want to sleep. And so I even think like just being really cognizant that, yes, if you have, a very high carb snack and meal, you're going to feel that, that spike in energy. That's just like a kid running around because they had too much candy.
Right.
I think we don't realize too, like I was alluding to earlier, we go to the doctor and we segment what's going on with us. But, thyroid disease, fatty liver disease, fatigue, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, even arthritis can be worked back to dysregulated blood sugar.
Yeah.
And we always think of these things as individual or, certain diseases. Oh, I have arthritis now. And we don't relate it back to blood sugar dysregulation because we've not been taught to.
Yeah. And that's so true. We handle them as individual things. But the thing is that none of these require a diabetes diagnosis.
Right.
But they absolutely reflect unstable blood sugar, which was just amazing and mind-blowing to me when I learned this way of life. I think we've all been there where, we've all been through our 100 days and how much we learned. And even in our coaching certification, how much we learned about, we might start off with being shaky or whatever. And then it just gets progressively worse as we go up, as we don't address it. So I think that's, it's just mind blowing that, if we can stabilize, kind of do I'm not going to say just one thing, but if we can get that blood sugar stabilized, how much, to me, I'm just going to say better quality of life I've had since I've learned that.
Exactly. And we don't realize how bad we felt until we
Right.
start to feel better,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Well, on that note, what happens and how do we feel when our blood sugar is stable? What do people start noticing? What have you heard from your clients as to what they start noticing?
Well, for my clients and for me, it's been energy, and it's not that frenetic energy that you were just talking about, Amber.
Right.
It's like this steady energy. All of a sudden, I was waking up before my alarm, and that's a big deal for somebody with Hashimoto's and autoimmune disease, right? Because you can wake up exhausted and not want to get out of bed.
Right.
But I was waking up before my alarm, and I was a little mad about it at first. But not only was I waking up, but I was waking up ready to go. So it's not like that 3 o'clock wake up where I'm like, oh, it's 3 o'clock and now I'm awake. It was, wow, it is 2 minutes before my alarm goes off and I'm ready to get out of the bed and I want to go do something. I don't want to just transfer from my bed to the couch. I'm cleaning out the dishwasher. I'm making breakfast. I'm doing things because I have this stable energy finally. And my husband looked at me one day. He's like, who are you? And now he expects it all the time. So there's that.
Yeah. And I think even one of the things that I saw was the improved sleep. Because I was that person that was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I thought I just had to go to the bathroom. Okay. Because I think that's the one thing we kind of reflect on.
Yep.
And maybe you do. I don't know. But I know that now I don't fall asleep at 8 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
I usually go to bed. You know, my rhythm now is I usually go to bed around 11. Like you, Elaine, I don't set an alarm, but I'm usually awake between 6:30 and 7. And I'm asleep during that entire time at night, which is awesome. So much more rested, which helps with that energy that you're talking about.
Right.
So, yeah.
You know, for one of my clients, because I mean, it goes back to that we don't go to the doctor until we feel like crud. And so one of my clients came to me because she was having a lot of inflammation in her Achilles, and it was preventing her from getting a workout in, and then it started preventing her from walking. And this is a girl that I've known for quite a long time who's very active. And it was quite debilitating. So when she came to me, that was a big part of her why was I want to be able to be as physically active as I used to be. And so whenever we talk about how things are going, we really do relate it back to that why. And that's one of the first things I hear is, I feel my Achilles getting better. I can tell the inflammation is lower. I'm able to do more, you know, and kind of things like that. And so, you know, especially like identifying the reason why you are looking to stabilize your blood sugar helps you then notice what improves when your blood sugar does become stable.
Yeah, it does. And that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it until you brought up about the inflammation, because that's one thing I saw. I mean, so before this, I was in corporate IT and I would sit in meetings all day. Yeah. And I would look down and my ankles would be swollen to the point it hurt to walk. Oh. And we would go on beach vacations and I couldn't wear my flip-flops because my feet were so swollen. I couldn't go walk on the beach because my ankles were so swollen. And that's one thing that I found is the inflammation with me stabilizing my blood sugar. I haven't had swollen, knock on wood, haven't had swollen ankles in probably 3 years. Oh, wow. And it just makes life so much easier. I don't have to worry about, oh, can I wear those nice sparkly blingy flip-flops now when I go on vacation? Because, you know, and I can because my feet aren't swollen. And I can walk on the beach for an hour if I want to because my feet aren't swollen. And I can do that barefoot. I mean, before I knew if I wore my tennis shoes, I could probably do it. I can do that barefoot now and not have to worry about the inflammation. So, you know, there's just so many amazing things that happen when we work with our body.
I love how you said that, when we work with our body instead of
Yeah.
fighting it. When we think about how can I support it, and we kind of do that survey of, well, what's hurting and why. I think that
Yeah.
makes such a big difference.
It does. And this is important for our audience to realize, and especially for women who are in their midlife, because this is where people during this time start to say, why does everything just feel harder?
Mhm.
I know I was there, because it seemed like the older I got, the harder everything got.
For sure.
Yeah. But what we have to realize is that our body's not broken. Kind of what I was talking about earlier. Our body is trying to survive. It is such a smart machine. And I don't mean that in a mechanical type of way, but it does whatever it can to try and help us survive and stay alive and combat those things that we're feeling. But often our rhythm can be off. So we're not broken, but our rhythm is off. So let's talk about prevention without making it scary. But type 2 diabetes doesn't just show up. It's not like one day you're not diabetic and the next day you've got type 2. It's usually years. I've heard as much as 10 years prior to being diagnosed that you are in insulin resistance, and it keeps building very quietly. I know I was pre-diabetic when I started this. Luckily, I was able to reverse it. But I also know that this probably started 10, 15 years before I got to that point.
So I have a really good word picture to help you kind of understand what insulin resistance is. Because we hear this from our doctors.
We do.
Well, you might have metabolic syndrome, or you have insulin resistance, and you think, isn't insulin supposed to be good? And why am I resisting it? And what is going on? Right. And so without using a medical term, here's what it's like. Think of your body like a house, right? And your cells are all the rooms in the house. So glucose, or the sugar from your food, is the energy. It's like the light bulb that needs to go on in those rooms. And insulin then is a key that unlocks the door. So the glucose, the light, the energy can get into each cell. So in a healthy system, you eat something that's converted into glucose, and your pancreas releases insulin. Your insulin unlocks the door. The glucose goes into the cell, lights up everything, and your cell uses it for energy. But when you have insulin resistant, it's like the locks on your doors are getting rusty. So insulin, now you eat something, it's converted into glucose. You have glucose in your blood. So insulin goes to the cell and tries to unlock the door, but it can't unlock the door because the door doesn't open. It's rusty. It's not working correctly.
Yeah.
So then the glucose stays stuck in your bloodstream. And your body still has to deal with all that glucose in your bloodstream, right? And so it responds by producing more insulin, because it's like, well, the insulin that's there isn't enough. There's too much glucose in the bloodstream. So it tries to like force those doors open with more insulin, which means that over time you have too much glucose and too much insulin then in your blood. And that combination is what creates the stress and the inflammation and the fatigue and the cravings and the blood sugar swings, because our body doesn't know what to do with everything, because it's not going where it's supposed to go. So it has to kind of pivot and figure out where to put it.
I love that visual. That is a great way to see that.
So then the question becomes, where does your body put the extra glucose when it can't go into the cells?
Where does it go?
That's a good question.
Well, I think we know that it goes into our fat cells.
Exactly.
Because we're storing it for when we need it later. I mean, that's where everything gets stored for later. So.
And wouldn't it be wonderful if our bodies then went to our fat,
wouldn't it,
to convert it to when we needed glucose, right? But it doesn't, because it takes so much longer to convert that out of fat than it does out of muscle. But then when we're not eating enough and our body still needs the energy, needs to turn on the lights in those cells in the rooms of our house, it goes to our muscles, because our muscles metabolize them so much more quickly than the fat does, because the fat is for like, the fat is like a retirement account, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's for
Yeah.
later. And our muscles are what gives us our
Immediate.
Immediate. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that fight or flight, instinct that we have in our bodies from when humans were created a long time ago. And
Right.
that's why, like you said, Elaine, when it goes from our muscle, it's quick energy. It's something we can get right away, which is why our body goes there first. And then after a while, if it's going to be for a long period of time, it'll go to the fat, but it just takes a while to get there.
Right.
Well, and I think that's something that is not widely known, because you've definitely heard for decades, well, my body's just going to burn all of its stored glucose.
Or fat.
Or fat is what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that stored glucose is coming from your muscles, but I think we think that it's coming from our fat cells. I think we've been led to believe that.
You're right.
And it's just that misconception, I think, can be dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's the root of a whole bunch of issues. We could go into, all the trends and the quick fixes, but the bottom line is all of those quick fixes make us lose muscle as well.
Yeah, it does.
Almost half of our muscle is usually lost in those quick fixes.
Yeah. And then we bring in midlife.
Right.
So estrogen declines. We lose muscle more easily and quickly than we did before. We move less many times as we get older. And suddenly the same eating pattern that worked when we were 35 doesn't work when we're 55.
It doesn't.
Or even 50, for that matter.
Right.
So why do so many women think this is just hormones? Because a lot of times you hear, oh, well, it's just hormones. It's just the way my body works. It's just getting older. And I think we've kind of maybe addressed some of this already. But when blood sugar, it's not just the hormones. Blood sugar is very deeply involved in this. Kind of what you described is that, we're burning that muscle or the glucose that's in our muscle versus burning that glucose that's in our fat. So, and then, like I said, with the estrogen declines, losing muscle more easily, it's just almost like a snowball effect.
Right.
By stabilizing our blood sugar will help us to be able to alleviate some of that.
Right. Yeah. And you had asked why we think it's just hormones. It's because we start seeing it. Remember you said this is happening in our 30s and 40s and we don't see the results of it until we're in midlife. Yeah. And then at midlife, we're hitting menopause or perimenopause. And all of a sudden, that's what we correlate it to, because that's the time that it's happening. But I don't necessarily think that it's a correct correlation. I don't think it's wrong, but I think there's a more deep-rooted cause of all of this happening, right?
Yep, so, I agree.
Yeah. So, and we know that muscle is life. It's longevity. It is what keeps us out of the nursing home, is what I always tell everybody. Because, we don't want to sit down on the toilet one day and then not be able to get up because we don't have any muscles in our legs.
Right.
I also think that there is a level of ease. And what I mean by that is, well, if it's just hormones and it's just because I'm female and it's just because I'm going through menopause, well, I don't have any control over that. It's just because I'm going through menopause, or look, I'm getting old, and if you chalk it up to that, like, I can't do anything about it, then you don't have to take responsibility for anything, because you're just getting older and you're just going through menopause. And I think that that's messaging that is also out there. Yeah. And that's why there's so many medications and supplements that are designed to truly just treat old age. What they really are band-aids for the deeper issue that is blood sugar instability.
Yeah. It's just amazing how much blood sugar impacts so many different things. So what I'd like to say is something gently. We don't wait for osteoporosis before lifting weights.
Mhm.
All right. We don't wait for heart disease before we start walking. So why are we waiting for diabetes before we start balancing our blood sugar? So what are some small proactive habits that make the biggest difference that you guys see?
I think one is just being aware that we don't have to feel like crap all the time, that we can intentionally and purposefully fuel our bodies in a way that gives us the energy that our body is craving.
Yeah, and I think it's being very mindful with our nutrition. And so, we teach PFC3, which means that you're starting with your protein and you're pairing your carbs with the protein and the healthy fat, which keeps that blood sugar stable, and making sure that you're not skipping meals. What I think all of those things right then and there is going against exactly what the dieting mentality teaches us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And I think a lot of that is I can tell you that since finding this lifestyle and balancing my blood sugar, I mean, I can tell you my blood sugar when I first started this, I couldn't get it to come down. Like I said, I was pre-diabetic. My A1C was up in like 6.4, 6.5. And I had a hard time getting it down at first. But part of that is I needed to let my body heal. But
Mhm.
now that it's down, I mean, my A1C is down to like 5.3, and it's been consistently like that. But what's been interesting to me is also how we manage that stress, because we all know that stress can spike our blood sugar. And I've seen it. I mean, I don't wear a glucose monitor all the time, but every once in a while I'll just kind of wear it to kind of say, hey, how am I doing? And, recently my mom had a health issue. And so there was a lot of caregiving that we were doing. And I felt like I handled it so much better. And I
Mm.
think part of that was because my blood sugar was stable. And so
Mhm.
I didn't have this fluctuation and the emotions and the hormones that were all out of whack. So it helped us to be able to handle that better.
Right.
So, the stress. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what do we do when we're stressed? And if we're not intentional about what we've learned in the 100 Days of 1%,
Right.
we eat fast food because we don't have time
Yep.
to cook, and we
Exactly.
don't exercise because we don't have the time, and we don't sleep well. And so it's just this big snowball that just keeps
Mhm.
Yeah.
worse, right? That's why I love that we teach so much about stress management and time management and tools to
Yes.
get your thoughts and emotions in check, and it helps so much.
So let's talk a little bit about our own personal reflections. We've kind of gone over this a little bit, but I'll go first. And I think I may have already talked about this a little bit. So about when, at a time in my life when I would fall asleep on the couch right after dinner because I was exhausted. It was a stressful day. Like I mentioned, I was in IT. We had problems that were going everywhere. And once we felt like we got something done, something else would crop up. I was skipping meals, and I thought that was okay. Look, I'm not eating that many calories. Okay. And then when I would eat something that I thought was a light snack, like I said, it was a bag of chips, or I'll eat an apple, which an apple's healthy, but it's all carbs.
Mhm.
And then I would get home and I would reward myself for completing the day. I got through this day. Okay. Tomorrow's another day, but I'm going to reward myself. And what did I reward myself with? I'll give you guys one guess and two guesses, and the first one doesn't count.
Chocolate.
Chocolate, which is carbs. So
Yep.
there were more carbs in my life. So, I didn't realize I was riding that roller coaster, and my body was really trying to keep me stable. So it was going, oh, give her insulin, give her glucose. She's got glucose coming, give her some insulin, give her some more insulin. Oh, wait, we need to stop, because like I said, those keys wouldn't open those cell doors. Now I'm just overloaded, and my body was exhausted by 8 o'clock.
Mhm.
So, that was just kind of my thing about what my personal reflections were before I learned this way of life.
My habit before I started with POC3 was I told you mornings are hard for me. And so I
Mhm.
would get up in the morning and I wouldn't be hungry and I wouldn't feel like making something to eat. And so I maybe wouldn't eat until 11 or 12 or 1
Yeah.
o'clock. And so I was doing, intermittent fasting before it was a thing. But
Right.
what I didn't realize was that was a sign that my metabolism was like turned off and I wasn't hungry because my metabolism was not working and I was in this dip. So no wonder I had no energy in the mornings, right?
Right.
But then as I started fueling within an hour of like when I get up, and still, there's some days where it is harder to get up if I'm having a flare or stress or anything. And so I have easy things that I can grab. I make a protein shake or I do a protein bar and some extra protein with it. And those things at least get my metabolism running. And then 3 hours later, like clockwork, I'm ready for like a real breakfast, right?
Yeah.
What people would consider a real breakfast. But
Right.
we call it our hobbit breakfast because, the hobbits eat more than one breakfast a day.
I like
I
that.
love second breakfast.
I do
I do
too.
too. Yeah.
Speaking of food and breakfast, lack of willpower and lack of discipline. Because when I was on the diet, oh my gosh, you are so disciplined, or wow, you have so much willpower. I could not do that. And so I believed that those cravings and that desire to eat all the sugary foods and things was just my lack of willpower or my current lack of discipline. And so learning that it was really unstable blood sugar
Yeah.
was mind blowing. And it made being consistent with anything really challenging.
Mhm. And that's actually one of the things I love most about living with a balanced blood sugar,
Mm-hmm.
stable blood sugar, is that food doesn't yell at me anymore. It doesn't
Right.
say, you need me, you have to eat me. I can
Yeah.
look at food and determine, do I want it or not?
Yeah.
Not do I need it, not do I deserve it? It's like, is it going to fuel me? Am I feeling hungry? And that freedom has
Is
been
amazing.
empowering. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes.
I know it's funny when the last vacation we went on, and when we go on vacation, ice cream is like every night after dinner, we would go get ice cream. So this last vacation we went on, we were in our car, we were driving, all packed up, driving home. And my husband reached over and he puts his hand on my head. He goes, "Do you feel okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I feel fine." He goes, "We didn't go out for ice cream this time." I'm like, "Oh, we didn't." And I didn't even realize it. So
Wow.
that was kind of an epiphany at that point. It was like, wow, it wasn't like something we had to do. I didn't even miss it. And I love ice cream, so don't get me wrong. It's one of my favorite foods.
Yeah.
I still do, but I don't crave it like I did before, which was
Mm.
just amazing to me. So,
And
So
that
I want-
habit clearly is changing too.
yeah,
Right.
Because it sounded like it wasn't necessarily a craving so much as well, we're on vacation. It's nighttime. It's time
That's
to go
true.
get ice cream.
yeah, yeah. It was. It was just an interesting thought, and the fact that my
Yeah.
husband noticed it before I did was interesting
See,
too.
that's
Yeah.
powerful.
It is. So I want to close with this. Balancing blood sugar is not about fear. It's not about labeling yourself, and it's not about restriction. It's about understanding how your body works. And when you respect that rhythm, everything just gets easier.
Mhm.
You don't have to wait for a diagnosis to deserve stability. You can choose it now. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Glucose, Grit, and Grace. Also, found just one snippet of information to be helpful, pass this on to a friend. And don't forget to subscribe and share. We'll see you next time with no sugarcoating. Bye.